I now call up H.R. 2334 to preempt any squatters' rights established by the state law regarding real property owned by a member of the Uniformed Services. The clerk shall report.
H.R. 2334.
The text was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with, and the bill is now open for amendments at any point. I now recognize myself for the purposes of offering an amendment in the nature of a substitute. The clerk shall report the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Bost amendment.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute is dispensed with, and I ask it be considered base text for purposes of this markup. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak in support of the amendment in the nature of substitute. The ANS would add a short title to the bill and revise the language to clarify congressional intent. Under current law, the Service Members Civil Relief Act does not protect a service member who returns home from military orders and finds individuals residing in their home illegally from assistance due to the state squatter protection laws. To remove these individuals, service members must fight their state government and typically pay costly fees to get trespassers out of their home, out of the homes they own. This bill would close this loophole by ensuring that the state squatter laws do not allow squatters to occupy service members' homes while they are away on active duty. Additionally, it would ensure our nation's service members have the right to quickly, easily effect trespassers instead of going through an expensive, time-consuming process. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Representative Mast, for bringing this very important issue to the committee on behalf of our service members. Do any members wish to comment on the amendment in the nature of a substitute for H.R. 2334? Seeing none. Are there any amendments to the amendment in the nature of a substitute for H.R. 2334?
Mr. Chairman,
I recognize the ranking member Takano for the purpose of offering a substitute amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I have a substitute amendment to the amendment in the nature of substitute to H.R. 2334 at the desk.
The clerk shall report the amendment.
Substitute for
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with without objection, so ordered. I now recognize ranking member Takano for 5 minutes to speak in support of his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, no service member who deploys should have to worry about squatters adversely possessing or claiming ownership of their property while they're away serving our country. On that point, we are agreed. Adverse possession, really, but I just want to caution us. Adverse possession is a nuanced legal issue governed by state and local real property law, which requires us to carefully amend the Service Members Civil Relief Act, or SCRA, to preempt those laws and address this issue for deployed service members. While specific elements that must be proven for an individual to adversely possess a property vary by state, all locales share the requirement that the individual must inhabit the property for a specified period of time, which varies between 4 and 20 years. Now, my amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute fixes a fundamental defect to the underlying text and would apply the legal concept of tolling to adverse possession cases for service members. In essence, tolling stops the clock and is used when a party is unable to act due to circumstances beyond their control. So my amendment, quote unquote, stops the clock during service members' entire period of service for individuals who may try to claim ownership of the service member's property. So let me give you an example. It's kind of complicated to hear how that works. Let's say that we're in Kentucky. My friend Kentucky, yes. We're going to use Kentucky as an example today. Let's say we're in Kentucky, maybe Lexington, where adverse possession requires 15 years of continuous possession. Let's say that a service member stationed at Fort Knox receives 5 years and during those 5 years leaves their primary residence in Louisville. We're talking about Louisville, not Lexington. Leaves their primary residence in Louisville vacant while they live on base. All right, so it's been vacant. If an individual moves into the service member's property and tries to claim ownership, my amendment would stop the clock, and those 5 years of service would not count toward the 15 years of possession that individual would need to claim ownership of the property under Kentucky law. The 15-year clock would not begin until the service member's period of service is over. Courts in multiple states have interpreted SCRA's existing tolling provision to, quote-unquote, stop the clock for adverse possession during service members' periods of service. But my amendment would eliminate any potential ambiguity and clarify that SCRA does just that. I had major concerns that the amendment in the nature of a substitute would not withstand the Loper-Bright scrutiny because it was so vague. My amendment provides legal clarity to that vagueness. However, I remain concerned that our efforts on this legislation will not provide the urgent relief that service members desire and deserve when they return home from deployments to find trespassers or squatters on their property. The nerve, think about that. Service members will still have to engage in local law enforcement to bring trespassing charges, to remove squatters from their property, or start eviction proceedings if they have a holdover tenant who has overstayed their lease. My amendment adds a requirement that VA use its existing SCRA websites and resources to educate veterans on how to secure their property while deployed, how to be a landlord, and how to protect their rights. I look forward to continue to working with the majority to strengthen this language before it heads to the floor for consideration. I urge my colleagues to therefore vote yes on my substitute amendment to the amendment in nature of a substitute. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and I recognize myself in support of the amendment. The ranking member's amendment would modify the language in current statute instead of making a new section. The amendment would also require VA to provide information to service members about their rights under this section. While I applaud the ranking member for promoting transparency, I'm concerned about why he chose VA instead of Department of Justice. Currently, the DOJ is the only enforcer of FCRA violations. Additionally, the service members goes to the DOJ, not to VA, if he or she believes their rights have been violated. During the 117th Congress, the ranking member and I worked together to provide several FCRA protections to service members. It was the DOJ, not the VA, who provided information to the service members and the states. What the bill does now is like having GI Bill information being sent out by the Department of Labor. It does not make sense, and I understand the ranking member staff has already made a commitment to working with the majority before this bill goes to the floor to make sure the agencies, who is the subject of this matter, are the experts, is the one sending the information to the service member. To not let perfect be the enemy of the good with the ranking member's language, I will support it with the intent that more work is still to be needed in this language, and I urge my colleagues to support the amendment as well and the underlying bill, and I yield back. And would any other member wish to comment on the Takano amendment? Hearing none. The question now occurs on agreeing to the Takano substitute amendment and the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 2334. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
In the opinion of the chair, any opposed, say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The question now occurs on agreeing to the amendment in the nature of a substitute on H.R. 2334 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute as amended is agreed to. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. I now recognize Representative Takano for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that H.R. 2334 as amended be reported favorably to the House.
The question is favorably reporting the H.R. 2334 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to, and H.R. 2334, as amended, is reported favorably to the House. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to H.R. Rule 11, Clause 2, I give notice of intent to file minority, supplemental, additional, or dissenting views on H.R. 2334 as amended. I'm very pleased that we came to an agreement that we both dislike squatters and trespassers.
There you go.
on veterans' property.
Without objection, by the way.